What's up, my fellow YouTubers? My whole life I've always heard about Saw Death Wish around, like when back in the 80s, when you'd go to rent a movie, you know, my father would give us some money. These were the days, right? You'd walk down with some money, you'd go look for a VHS tape to buy, right? And you'd be like, oh, which one do I want, right? And back then, movies were, so not advanced as they were nowadays, right? And you'd get a couple movies, you maybe get some popcorn, goobers at the local store, um, pay the guy, get some change, go home and watch it. And then since so many people watched it, right, the VHS, the quality wasn't always the best, right? It would kind of like mess up at times, wrinkle at times. The worst case is that the VHS tape would try to eat your VHS cassette, and what a nightmare sound that was, right? And you'd be like trying to get it out of the VHS thing, right? And then try to fix it, try to watch it again, or if you already watched it, try to explain to the guy that you broke the well you tried to fix it, but it kind of ate your VHS tape. Remember those days? I don't know if you do or not, but wow, what a nightmare. Anyways, that movie was always around during that time, right? And I just never, you know, bothered with it. And being a movie collector and waiting every day that for movies. I mean, every other week, every week, yeah, every Tuesday for. So if I come home Monday night tonight, 1:30 in the morning ish, usually they reset. So one of the movies was for $5 was this, and I said, okay, I'll try this out. I'll collect it, put it in my archives, and then last night I started it last week, and then last night I finally finished it. And for its time, it's a good movie. It's like it's about a guy, and spoiler alert, here we go, but it says it in the things anyways, and you've probably already seen it if you're a huge Charles Bronson fan anyways. But it's about a guy that he's a liberal. He was in the war, but he never really carried a gun. He was like a medic or whatever. And somebody, now back then it's so funny, like it's New York, so I grew up in Massachusetts, but it was similar, right? 70s, early 70s. His wife goes grocery shopping, and a bunch of thugs kind of like stalk her, and then somehow, some way, she leaves her info with the receipt at the counter. Now nowadays you'd never do that, but like I guess back then you could do that. And the thugs find her address and go, and they knock on her door, and she plays the. It's really stupid of her to do what she did. She sees just an eye and still opens it, and they basically really mess her and her daughter up and his daughter up, and she dies, and his daughter um, makes it, but she's like a vegetable type of thing. And then Charles Bronson being a liberal, in other words, I don't want to carry a gun, yada, yada, yada. He finds out about it. He's heartbroken. He goes through all this mourning process with him and his son go out vacation, and they're like, damn, what are we going to do? And then he slowly, gradually, because it's a movie, it builds up. He gradually gets a gun, gradually goes through training. And since it's New York, he's always getting approached, by by people that like to mug. And so he ends up like, I wouldn't say snapping, but like getting to the point where I screw people, right? Screw taking people's shit, and he gets approached by all these thugs that want his money, and he's like, screw you, I'm not gonna take your crap, and pulls out his gun, bang, 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 and then the cops catch on to him. And what's funny about that is, the cops are never there when you're getting mugged, but they're right there when you do something about it, right? They're right on your ass. They're trying to get you. I guess that's how it is in real life, right? Um, so then, they finally catch up with him after his, whole killing spree. But you got to remember, he's by himself. He's keeping to himself. He's not bothering anybody. People are constantly going up to him with a knife or whatever and saying, even a gun, and saying, hey, we get you trapped. Give me your money, this and that, right? And then he's like, boom, 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 boom. So, um, it gets really political in the way that the crime went down, because everybody thinks that, oh my God, if I approach somebody with a gun, they're going to shoot me, right? And the crime went down. And the cops were like, well, we want him out of here, but we really don't want to catch him either, because, then the crime rate might go up, and, so they make a deal with him. They finally catch him, and he's like, I never saw your gun, just go get lost, get out of New York. And he ends up, the last segment, he ends up in Chicago, and he sees a bunch of thugs messing around with a girl, and he helps the girl out, and then he looks at the thugs and goes like this, like Clint Eastwoodish, right? I don't even know. I've never been a huge Charles Bronson fan. I've always followed like Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris, but I think he's done part 2 and 3, and I don't know if him and Chuck Norris ever get together, but that would have been something else. As far as I know, I've never seen them both together in a movie, but or him and Clint Eastwood, probably an ego thing, probably like, hey, this is my movie, not yours, type of thing. But man, yeah, I think that if they were a little bit younger, they could have been in the Expendables. I know Chuck Norris played a little part in it, but not as much as he could have if he was younger. But let me know in the comments if you ever seen this movie. It's really good. I mean, for its time, for the 70s. Back then, they didn't have cell phones. They tried to mess with each other with a regular phone outside dialing, and that's what makes this movie funny, because it's like you're expected to answer back then. Oh, what if he's in the shower? What if you don't answer? You know what I mean? It's like, wow, oh my God, I do remember those days. I was born in 75, so this movie was like 1 year before I was born, but nothing much had changed much since I remember the 70s. I'm like, wow. And even back then, they still had computers. I was like, wow, I didn't think they had computers until like the early 80s, but I guess they had them back in the 70s, and they were comparing blood samples, but it wasn't as technologized as it is now. They didn't have the DNA or whatever, or as many cameras as they do now, right? So it's old-fashioned, but it's still, for its time, it was good. Let me know what you think of it in the comments. Did you see it? Did you like it? Man, they could remake it nowadays if they haven't already. I don't know. They might have. But, wow, what a good concept. What a good movie. All right, I will have more reviews. Peace out, my fellow YouTubers.